Welcome to another video. Today I want to show you my Corvette C6. So the cool thing about the Corvette is that Chevrolet was not shy to change the concept quite dramatically over the years, and they always stick to the things that make sense for them. But on the other hand, they were not shy to use any innovations, and that's pretty cool because other car manufacturers just keep on building the same thing if it sells well, and that is different here. And so we have a very unique concept. The Corvette started as a car with engine in front, gearbox in front, and always if something proved to be good for them, they kept it. If there was an innovation that made sense, they did it. So for the fourth generation, for example, they created a completely new suspension. They kept the leaf springs because it was good for them, while everybody else went to standard coil springs. And the C4 was the production car with the highest G-force at the time. So that was pretty impressive. For the C5, they put the gearbox in the back. So the gearbox used to be behind the engine, just like the Viper. But then they changed the gearbox to the back, so it's a transaxle concept now. And that allowed it for them to push the engine further back. So that's pretty cool. They also kept that for the C6. The C5 was pretty fat. It was a quite big car. It was pretty long and wide, had long overhangs. And the cool thing about the C6 here is that they made the car smaller, so it got shorter. It also got lighter, and that was also against the industry standard at the time. So at the time when this car came out, everything was getting bigger, everything was getting heavier. The Corvette got smaller. Pretty cool about the body structure here is that the Corvette has a steel frame, and everything that's yellow basically on here is plastic. So without this being plastic, you couldn't realize something like this, so like this outlet, that easily. You couldn't do something like this, like the door handles here. By the way, the doors open like that. But that's quite an extreme structure. And to be honest, the Corvette is built like my smart Roadster, because you just have a steel frame underneath, and then you just have screws to fix the plastic parts. And also there are quite extreme curvatures here, extreme radius. So you couldn't do that with a with any other thing than plastic. But that's also one of the disadvantages here, that everything is pretty soft. But in the end, it does the job. It is pretty light, and it looks good, so it's really cool. It's very simple. You don't always have to go for something very very expensive. If it does the job, it's okay. And we have to remember that when the Corvette C6 came on the market, it was faster than the Porsche 911 Carrera S. So we have a car here that is significantly cheaper. It's faster than the 911, and it's also very simple. And that's something we will also see in the engine bay. So here we go, that's the engine bay of the Corvette. This is a LS2. So they produced this car until 2007, until the next generation LS3 came. My car is a registered 2010 because it was in the showroom for a couple of years. And that's the 6-liter engine that was new developed for the C6. It's 405 horsepower, and I have the automatic gearbox with 6 gears. So there was an older one because the 6-speed gearbox was not available at the very beginning. They still put the old C5 4-speed gearbox inside, so I didn't really want to buy that one. The 6-speed is really cool, it's really nice. And when you're driving this car, you barely get more than 2000 RPM if you're just cruising around. So you can drive very comfortably, and it's really nice. There's a lot of torque. I think it's the biggest throttle body that I've seen anywhere, because it's a single one for the big engine. It's this, like I said, 6-liter engine. But the cool thing is, you can drive this thing with 8 liters on 100 kilometers. It's a 65-liter fuel tank, so that gives you more than 800 kilometers range. It's a really nice car for long distances because it's pretty comfortable. You even have cruise control, you have air conditioning, and you have a pretty big trunk. And we will see that in a minute. Engine bay is pretty tidy, pretty easy. to reach. And what's really nice about the Corvette is that everything is built super simple, and they also used the simple parts of the shelf. So for example, the air filters, there are two, one each side, are coming from, I think, the Opel Sintra, which is a family van. And so one air filter costs €7, so two of them €14, so it's super cheap. Also the interior filters from one of the cheaper models of GM, so that's super cheap parts. Let's go around here. You can use the standard 5W40 oil, so it's no special oil like my other cars, it's just the standard one. That's pretty nice. And yeah, just in general, everything around here is done with simple parts, so that's really cool. You can see the battery here. The battery is pretty small, and actually the car has a lot of electronics, so that is one of the weak points of the car. If it's standing for too long, when it's parking over the winter, when I'm not using it, it needs a charger like every 3 or 4 weeks. Where my Viper, for example, doesn't really care. It has a big truck battery and no electronics at all, almost. And that's different with the Corvette. So lots of electronics, small batteries, so make sure that you always charge the battery. For the bigger model, it's quite impressive. So for the C6, it's quite impressive that the Corvette changed quite a lot, because GM was changing to a 7-liter V8, then put the battery in the back. So we have to remember it's the same car, it's low production numbers, and they put the battery in the back, which is a completely different wiring loom, so it's a lot of trouble for the manufacturer, but they did it anyway for better weight distribution and also to have more space in the engine bay. They also changed the frame from steel to aluminium, reinforced with carbon fiber, so that's really cool. So the Z06 is really a big step from the standard model that we have here, and it's really impressive to see how much trouble is GM going through to improve the performance of this car. So really nice. And the good thing about the normal Corvette like this one is that it has a Targa roof, so you can take the roof off and you can put it in the back. And now let's have a look at the trunk. So you can open the trunk with a little button underneath here. So just at the license plate. So let's have a look at this. That is a massive trunk. And you have this cover here, so not everyone can see what's in your trunk. If you take it off, you still have the additional space all the way up to the window. And that's like 650 liters. Then you have some nice compartments down here. They're pretty deep. And you have a net here. And yeah, so 650 liters of storage. That's bigger than my VW Phaeton. And we went on a camping trip to Le Mans, 3,000 kilometers or 2,000 miles, and we had all our camping equipment in here. So table, chairs, tent, all of the food and stuff. It's really amazing, not a problem with this car. And yeah, I think there are barely any other cars with that large trunk. So one pretty funny feature about the Corvette is the fuel flap. So the fuel flap is on the driver's side here. And pretty often when I get out of the car for refueling, I forget to unlock it. So I reach inside here again, pressing that button, and suddenly the Corvette hits your butt. And because we just talked about fuel, the same thing like with anything else, the Corvette drives on any fuel, so you can drive it with 95 octane, 98 octane, so that's really amazing. My Smart, for example, my Smart Roadster Coupe needs 98 octane, it shouldn't drive anything else. The Corvette doesn't care, it also drives with less octane. So in the interior it's a bit strange that you can downshift and upshift on each side. So that's really confusing, and it's really easy to accidentally hit this pedal here thinking it's upshifting, but actually it's downshifting. So the electronics saved me from blowing the engine a couple of times already. So I got used to just using this pedal for down and upshift. And another thing is that the climate control always fails. It's always like it's still blowing cold air, but the screen is just showing strange things or nothing, but it still blows cold air, but I guess that's a GM thing. then everything in this car is like keyless go, and then with buttons for the doors, and you don't really have to turn the key. The key just has to stay here, and then if the car is sensing the key, then you can start it. But the thing is that pretty often it doesn't realize the key is here, especially if you have the key in your pocket together with other keys. So the safest place to have the key, that it can always be detected by the car, is here the cup holder. But then it's very easy to forget it. So if you get out, then the car is honking at you, reminding you that you forgot the key in the car. So yeah, this keyless go is a great thing. Also, if you walk up to the car, you want to open the door, it's nice, but it's only nice if it works, and pretty often it doesn't work and it doesn't sense the key, so that's a bit annoying then. But yeah, in general, most of the time it works, so it can be a great help in your everyday life. So let's come to aerodynamics now. As you can see, the Corvette has a very low front and it's getting higher and wider towards the back. So the Corvette is exactly the opposite to all the cars with boat tailing. The Corvette is actually getting wider towards the end, and we can see it if we look from the back. So it's actually getting wider, and you can see that you can, yeah, in your mirror, you just always see the fat rear end of the car. You also have the nice slick shape because of the big rear window, so pulling all the air back together and onto the spoiler. So it's pretty nice. It's a drag coefficient of 0.28, and which is quite amazing for such a car. And in combination with the low frontal area, it's a real low drag car. And you can feel that when you're driving on the fuel consumption, but also the car is rolling for a very long time. And we should still mention the weight. So the weight is between 1,400 and 1,500 kilogram. So that's also not too bad for such a car, and very similar to the Viper. So to me, as a European, it's quite a surprise to see the car underneath like that. It's completely uncovered. Even the anti-roll bar is right in the airflow here. And there's no cover at all. And yeah, if I compare it to other cars of that era, European sports cars, like the Ferrari 430 or Porsche 911 or the Audi R8, they all have a covered floor. Yeah, the Porsche at least in front, not at the back, but still they have a covered floor, and the Corvette doesn't have that, and it still works. It still drives 300 kilometers per hour without producing too much lift, and yeah, it's just a completely different concept. So how is that possible? Because the ground clearance is pretty normal, pretty high. I never had any problems with that in like tight parking houses or any angled driveways, so it's not a problem. But the Corvette has this, that is an air dam, and it's underneath the car, you can see here, and it's a pretty low lip, and it's just avoiding air from going underneath. So that is like a NASCAR. So instead of having a flat floor in the diffuser, you just avoid, or you just block the air from going underneath the car, which is also reducing the pressure underneath the car, and that's also reducing your lift. So it's a pretty cool and easy system. The thing is, you hit the ground pretty often with this, and that's why it's like a rubber lip. So it's not a problem if you touch the ground, but it's quite normal for the Corvette to scratch somewhere. As you can see here, it's super low. The cool thing is that in front of that is high pressure, right? Because you push the air in front of you. And this is also the success, or this is the special concept of the Corvette cooling system. So the previous generations didn't even have front air intakes. This one has one, but additionally you have an air intake from underneath. So let's have a look at the air dam again. So just in front of this air dam you have a large hole, and this is for brake cooling, and that is a very good position because you have high pressure in front of this here. And it's the same for the cooling. So if you see here, that is actually our cooling inlet, and you can see the radiator in angled position standing there just in front of the air dam. You can see by the amount of flies here, and you can never reach that to clean it, what a high pressure there is. And you can also see that this bonnet is shaped aerodynamically here, so you can pull the flow in there. So you have pretty good cooling from underneath, and additionally you have a cooling inlet here at the top. And what's also pretty nice at the Corvette is that you have these bumps here. So that's a metal structure, and if you hit the ground, you hit it with that. So you don't really hit anything important. It's just like a safety structure, or it's quite good. So when we were in France, that helped us a lot sometimes with some of the speed bumps there. And yeah, that's really cool and easy design. Also note these separation lines. So the Corvette is a prime example for perfect separation lines around the rear end, so that's really good. You can also see that it really works. So when you're driving, when it's raining and the car is getting dirty, it's only getting dirty here at the back where the air separates. So really good example for straightforward aerodynamics. So in the end, we can say that the Corvette is a very good package. It has a very smooth shape, which also allows for pretty low wind noise, and it's a pretty good value for the money. So you have a great engine, you have a great gearbox, you can drive it as your daily car, no problem. It doesn't need that much fuel, and if you want performance, it's there, and it's faster than a 911 of that time. So it's a really impressive car, also with large trunk and for long distances, and with its large range, so it's really perfect. And also if you need to fix something on that, all the parts are super cheap and super easy because they come off the shelf from GM, from other cars. And on that note, have a look at this side indicator. So in the end, we can say that the Corvette is a great package, it's an amazing sport car, and it's a great daily car. And if you want to experience this Corvette as a convertible, for a weekend or for any special event like wedding or something, and if you're in the area between Berlin and Dresden, you can rent this car from me now. So if you're interested in that, please contact me and we will make it happen. So see you at the next one.